This is Chasing the Sun. Author Ryan Boog. Read by James A Greig. It is May, not March, 31st, 2026. We'll begin tonight on Chapter 13. Something in the Water. Thank you, Scaldmare, with that Twitch Prime. Chapter 13, Something in the Water. Mary was in labor again. By now she was a seasoned veteran. The pain, the waiting, the final terrible push, all familiar to her. A neighbor woman helped. The older children had been sent to the hallway. They lined up on the stairs. Outside the door. Austin, Mary, Margaret, Letitia, Teresa. They sat in a row, listening. Austin put his arm around Teresa. The young ones did not fully understand what was happening. On the other side of that door, Austin did. A baby's cry came from inside the room. The children looked at each other. Letitia beamed ear to ear. William entered the room a moment later. Mary held the newborn, a boy. She was exhausted but present. This was her 7th delivery. Her body knew the cost, even if her face would not show it. "Joseph," she said. William sat beside her, touched the baby's face. He pressed his thumb against the boy's palm and gently squeezed. The boy squeezed back. "Welcome, Joseph," he said quietly. He kissed Mary's forehead. She closed her eyes. For a moment, everything was still. William glanced over by the doorway. Letitia beamed, a smile with her eyes shut and wet lying down her cheek. She paused. Teresa wore a flower in her hair. That night, after Mary had fallen asleep, William took the paper from his breast pocket and unfolded it at the kitchen table. The crease was deeper now. The Atlantic crossing had softened the paper. On the left half, under Mary, George, X, Austin, Mary, Letitia, Teresa, William, X. He wrote Joseph beneath them, 7 children under Mary's name, 2 tough X's. He folded the paper and put it back. All 5 children were in the tenement on a cool afternoon. The noise of the filling the rooms to the rafters. Austin and Mary, Margaret, nominated themselves as leaders. "We're going to play London Bridge. London Bridge is broken down, broken down, broken down." "Ma, what's after that?" "We used to call it Highgates. You bring your arms down on My Fair Lady and capture whoever is underneath." She proceeds to grab and squeeze Mary Margaret in a playful manner. Austin brightened. "Then you build it with iron and steel. Keep building the bridge with materials until you capture everybody." "Precisely. Then you have teams for your next game." "Like tug of war?" William called from the doorway. "Be gentle. Don't break anything." Mary touched his arm and nodded toward the door. They left Austin and Mary Margaret in charge. They walked the streets of North End side by side as they had once walked Michael's Lane in Dublin. Mary spoke first. "How often do you think of Ireland?" "Let's start with you," William said. "How often do you think of Ireland?" "Every day. Of course it's every day." She pulled her shawl tighter against the Boston wind. "I have a family there. I started this life out of nothing there. We buried our sons there. We found success there. The atmosphere, the rain, the liberties, the Liffey. It was a way of life. This is a big change." She paused. "I do miss my sisters and brother." William was quiet for a long time. They walked half a block before Mary nudged him. "I answered. Now it's your turn." "I've never really been on the look backward," he said. "Never had a reason to. I've always looked at what's ahead of me." He shoved his hands into his pockets. "I do think of Doyle every now and then, wondering if he'd be proud of me." Mary took his hand. They walked on together, their voices dropping to a murmur as the streets of Boston carried on around them. Mary walked down Prince Street one morning with Joseph in her arms, a basket in the other hand. She stopped at the water pump shared by the block and worked the handle with her free arm. Cloudy water was a way of life, a good boil, and all is well. She carried on to the milk vendor. A man sold from a large can on a cart. Mary bought a measure. She sniffed it. Something was off. She looked at the vendor. "This is fresh?" "Fresh enough," the man said, already turning to the next customer. Mary looked at the milk, looked at Joseph. She needed to feed her children. She paid and walked home. Behind her, the water pump dripped. Mary kept a close eye on the children, including Joseph, to make sure they stayed healthy. Seven months later, Joseph lay in a makeshift crib, burning with fever. His tiny body shivered in sweat at the same time. His crying had become a weak, constant mewling, the sound of a baby who is losing the strength to scream. Mary held a damp cloth to his forehead. Her hands were shaking, not from the cold. William paced the room. He'd already been to find a doctor, who did not need much time to look at Joseph. The doctor touched his skin and shook his head. William tracked him down in the hallway and they talked quietly. He did not want the children to hear. There was nothing to be done. The doctor said he dealt with infant and young child death all too often in this neighborhood. Said it without flinching, like a man reporting the weather. Cholera. "There must be another doctor," he said. "That man was a fraud. We need another opinion. I don't care if I don't have the money today. Let's take him to church. Maybe they can help. Somebody has to know. Someone. Somehow. We have to find someone who..." "Stop!" Mary said it sharp and without looking up. Her voice stopped him like a hand on his chest. William stopped. He looked at his wife. She was holding their dying child. The other children were in the next room. They could hear everything. "Sit with us," she said, controlled. Barely. William's eyes welled up as he sat down beside her. He put his hand on Joseph's chest. The baby's heartbeat was fast and faint. In the hallway, the other children sat in silence. Letitia had her arm around Teresa, calm. Austin stared at the floor. Mary Margaret pressed her face into Austin's shoulders so she could not see. Behind the closed door, the mewling grew quieter, then stopped. A long silence. Then Mary's voice, a single raw sound that she caught almost immediately, and stuffed back down, and then nothing. Joseph was only 7 months old when he passed away. William stood rigid at St. Mary's Church, his arm around Mary, who was perfectly still and perfectly upright. She could not afford to be any other way. William lingered after the others had moved away. He stood alone, staring at the ground. "I brought you all this way," he said, barely audible. He could not finish the thought. He put his hat on and walked away. Austin was fresh on his mind again, and he was the only one left who could carry on the Boog name. The Boston tenement was hot and still, late August, and the air in the rooms had thickened. The air seemed to cling to his skin and his clothes everywhere you went. The windows were open, but nothing came through them. From the hallway, the smell of every family on the floor. Boiled cabbage, tallow, sweat, the sour tang of waste from the shared privy in the yard below. Mary sat in the chair by the stove, staring at nothing. She had not moved since they came back from St. Mary's. She had not spoken. William did not try to make her. He waited until the children were asleep. Then he pulled from the paper in his breast pocket and unfolded it onto the table. No candle. The room held enough light from the street, a thin gray beam through the window that turned the ink on the paper to shadow. Joseph, the newest name, the freshest ink. He picked up the pen. His hand did not want to do this. His hand knew what the X meant. It meant the name was finished. The story was over. The boy was in the ground in a city that did not feel like home. He wrote the X after Joseph. Small, deliberate, another son. George, X. William, X. Joseph, X. 3 X's now. 3 small crosses on the left half of the piece of paper. He folded it and put it back in his breast pocket. The paper wasn't as stiff anymore, as William's body heat had softened it over the years. It held its own shape. Chapter 14, Merry Christmas. Let's see. All right. October turned the trees along Prince Street into a brief, bitter beauty that nobody in the tenements had time to notice. The sky hung low and gray over Boston, the kind of gray that pressed down on a person's chest. William stood on a ladder outside a brownstone on Hanover Street, painting trim in a cold rain that had started as mist and thickened into something with weight. His brush moved in along even strokes, mechanical, precise, the kind of painting a man does when the alternative to working is thinking, and thinking is not something he could afford. Below him, the foreman called up, "Boog, come down. We're done for the day. Rain's too heavy." William did not come down. He loaded the brush and pulled another stroke across the fascia board. The rain ran down in his forearms and dripped off his elbows. The white paint thinned and streaked. "Boog!" He came down. Slowly, he cleaned his brush and against the ladder rung with the care of a man who had nothing else to care for at the moment. The other painters on the crew watched him from under the eaves. They gave him space. They had heard. Everyone on Prince Street had heard. He walked home through the rain without hurrying. His boots found the cobblestones by memory. When he opened the door of the apartment, the silence met him first. Mary stood at the stove, her back to him, stirring something in a pot. The motion was correct. The rhythm was correct. The woman performing it had retreated to some interior room that William could not reach. "I'm home," he said. She did not turn around. "Supper is nearly done." He hung his wet coat on the hook. Water pooled beneath it. In the next room, the children were arranged in a style of quiet that no child their age should have been mastered. Mary Margaret sat on the floor with a piece of string, weaving it between her fingers in a pattern she had invented. Letitia sat beside her, not doing anything, only bearing near. Teresa scurried across the rug and stopped at William's boots and looked up at him. Mary used to sing while she cooked. Irish songs, old ones, the melody filling the apartment. Sometimes the neighbors paused on the stairs to listen. She had not sung since Joseph. The apartment was smaller without her voice. The children did not ask about it. They lived in silence and waited for it to end. Austin appeared in the doorway. He was 6 now, nearly 7 years old, and something in his face had aged past his years. He carried a bucket of water he had fetched from the pump without being asked. "I got the water, Ma, and I walked the girls to Miss Flanagan's this morning. Mary Margaret didn't want to go, but I told her she had to." Mary looked at her eldest living son. She opened her mouth to thank him, but the words snagged on something. She nodded instead. Austin set the bucket down and took his place at the table and served himself without a fuss. He had learned that filling sense with noise was worse than letting it be. He was becoming his father's son without anyone teaching him how, absorbing William's rhythms through osmosis. Mary Margaret clung to Austin during the long hours William worked. She watched how he handled the younger ones, how he broke for bread with Teresa without being asked, and how he asked if he could help. She tried to carry herself the same, this 6-year-old, squaring her small shoulders as if the posture alone could hold everything together. Letitia was the quietest of them. She watched more than she spoke, and when one of the younger ones cried, she was the first to reach them. A hand on a shoulder, a kiss pressed to the top of a head. Teresa was the opposite. She explored everything. went places she should not have gone, put things in her mouth that should not have been there. She made Austin and Mary Margaret earn the authority every day. William came through the door one evening with a grin the children had not seen in months. He was carrying something behind his back. Austin, set the table. Mary Margaret, bring the extra seat from the other room. Make sure everyone has a place to sit. Mary looked up from the stove. William Boog had never once in their marriage cared about the table settings. Tonight, we do something new, he said. An American tradition. Thanksgiving. Mary stared at him. What are you now, a Protestant? We celebrate the feast days of the saints, William, not holidays invented by governments. Mary Margaret clung to Austin during the long hours William worked. Oop, there we go. We are American. People here do this, and we don't have a single tradition of our own. Not one. We could use one. And what are we supposed to eat? We can't afford a turkey. I'm well ahead of you. The children heard his voice before they saw what he was holding. I was on a job site today, moving lumber around, getting the scaffolding ready. Dorning was sitting there, taking his break, eating crackers, and he dropped a few out of his pocket. This goose walked right up to eat them. Didn't see me coming. He came back into the room holding a goose by its neck. He lifted it high and showed it to the family, with the biggest smile he had worn since Dublin. Then, whack! I smacked it with the board. I got us a proper dinner. The kitchen went loud all at once. Austin was transfixed. Mary Margaret was horrified. We're eating that? We are. Turnips, too. We have stale breadcrumbs and an onion. Goose with stuffing. A real American meal. Mary was in disbelief, but only for a moment. She studied the bird and imagined the size of her pots and pan. Then something switched on inside her. She knew exactly how to make the stuffing. She had watched her grandmother do it, with whatever scraps were available, and the knowledge had lived in her hands all this time, waiting. Austin helped William with the bird. William called the girls away from the table. Girls, look away. Austin, come here. William had been waiting for hours to do this with Austin. He laid the goose on the board and picked up a dull cleaver. His eyes went wide. He sucked in a breath and brought it down hard. The head came off clean. Austin swore he saw the wings move. Mary Margaret screamed from across the room. The boys defeathered the goose. Feathers blew everywhere. Teresa collected them and stuck them in her hair and mouth. Letitia watched from the corner, skeptical and amused. William and Austin plucked and burned what was left. Then came the part William had been waiting for all day. See where I cut? Reach in there and pull out the innards. Austin put his hand inside the bird. His face went through several expressions at once. Within seconds, he had forgotten entirely about dinner and was playing with the guts, stretching them between his fingers and chasing Mary Margaret around the room. She had been crying and pouting since the cleaver came down. Mary ignored all of it and stuffed the bird with her breadcrumb mixture. She and William cooked it together while the children settled. At the table, they joined hands. This was new. Nobody had asked them to. The room went quiet. Then Letitia spoke up in her small voice. Lord, bless this food and bless our bodies. A pause. Then everyone ate. Mary Margaret would not touch the goose. Stuffing and bread would do for her tonight. Teresa ate with her feathers still in her hair. Austin ate like a boy who had earned his meal. William did not eat. He sat at the head of the table and watched his family. His plate was full, but his hands were in his lap. I'm thankful for my family, he said. I never had a moment like this, not once. Maybe this is what it means to be a Boog. Maybe something out of nothing. Being together. Mary set down her fork. You're going to pray and give thanks when the American government tells you to? This is not how we were raised, William. I'm not bowing to the government or anyone else. I was saying we can sit at this table and be thankful. Not because someone told us to. Because we have each other, and that is enough. Mary looked at him. She looked at the children. Teresa with feathers in her hair. Austin with a goose grease on his chin. Letitia sitting straight in her chair with a smile, Mary Margaret pouting but present. She picked up her fork and went back to eating. She did not agree with him out loud. She did not need to. The table was full and the room was warm. For one evening, the Boog family was loud and alive. The evenings returned to what they had been. William worked late. Mary held the house together. One night in early December, Teresa lay on her mattress with her breathing thick and labored. It felt like slime had formed at the back of her throat. You could not see it, but you could hear it in every raspy breath. Her neck was swollen on both sides. Other children on the floor had it too. Austin at first tried to help Mary care for her, but he caught what Teresa had. Now 2 children needed Mary's help. Mary Margaret caught what they had. The apartment looked like a sick bay. Mary examined Teresa by candlelight. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed her. She had seen this. Not the disease specifically, but the trajectory, the arc of a child going from fine to not fine. "Get the doctor," she said to William. "Steady." "Soon." William did not ask anything back. He was already moving. The doctor was different from the one who had come for Joseph. Older, tired, with the worn look of a man who had been making house calls in the tenements for too many years. He examined Teresa, pressing her tongue down with a wooden stick and looking at her throat. His face told him everything. "I've seen this in this building. Diphtheria, I'm afraid." The word hung in the air. Mary closed her eyes, opened them. "How long until she is better?" "The membrane in her throat is what does it. If it closes over, she can't breathe. We try gargling with lime, water, steam. Sometimes it helps. Some survive, some don't. She's far along." "What do we do?" "I suggest praying and keep other children away from her." "Has anyone else been in close contact?" "Mary and Austin." "They're laying over there." The doctor examined those 2 briefly. "They have it too. Just keep the others away from her. Clean everything she's touched. Get that membrane under control. Godspeed." He packed his bag. At the door, he paused and looked back. "All 3. They all stay separate. Keep others away from them, too." William and Mary looked at each other. The room contracted around them. William looked again at Austin. Within days, the room had been divided. On one side, Teresa lay in her bed, her breathing a horrible wet rasp. On the other, Austin and Mary Margaret, just far enough apart, the same throat sounds, the same swollen necks. Mary moved between them. She pressed cool cloths to their foreheads. She spooned water between their dry lips. She whispered to them constantly, words that could not be heard from the doorway, but that never stopped. She had not slept in 2 days. Her body moved on something beyond energy. She boiled water on the stove and carried it to each bedside in a basin. She soaked cloths and wrung them and laid them across foreheads that burned under her touch. She scraped lime from a block she had purchased from the chemist on Salem Street and mixed it with the water. She held the cup to Austin's lips and tilted it until he swallowed. She did the same for Teresa. She did the same for Mary Margaret. She started to see glimpses of a turnaround. Her hands did not shake. They had wrung sheets in a wash house since she was 15. They had scrubbed floors on Aston's Quay. They had pressed cool cloths to Joseph's forehead in the same city. These hands knew the choreography of a sick room. In the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, she allowed herself 1 minute. She stood at the window with her back to the room and pressed her forehead against the cold glass. The street below was empty. A single gas lamp burned at the corner, and its light fell on the cobblestones in a circle of yellow. She looked at the circle of light. She breathed. She counted to 60. When she reached 60, she turned around and went back to work. Letitia appeared in the doorway at 4 in the morning. She was 5 years old. She held a cup of water she had filled from the kitchen. She walked across the room and set it on a table beside her mother without being asked. Mary looked at her. Letitia looked back. No words. The child returned to the other room. Mary picked up the cup and drank. William sat between the beds. equidistant from all three children, as though his position alone could somehow balance the scales. His hands hung between his knees. The other children had been sent to the neighborhood's apartment. There, the neighbor's cracked door, they huddled together, listening to the sounds that came through the walls. December 18th, 1874, 1 week before Christmas, snow fell outside the window, visible in the gaslight, each flake catching the glow for a moment before it vanished. Austin lay in his bed. His breathing had changed. It was shallow now, each inhale a negotiation between his lungs and the membrane that was slowly closing them. He was 13 years old. His eyes were slightly open. William sat beside him. He held his son's hand. Austin's hand was hot and small in his father's painted-stained grip. "Bah!" Austin's voice was a whisper, ruined by the disease. "I'm here." "Are we going to move again?" William could not speak for a moment. He swallowed hard. "We might." Austin smiled, the ghost of a smile, thin and brief, but real. "Good," he said. "I like it when we moved. Something new to see. More birds to eat." William held his son's hand tighter. He smiled and his eyes got wet. Austin looked at the snow falling past the window. His eyes followed, a single flake down. "I kill every bird in the world for you, Austin James. Right now, I need you to fight, okay?" Austin looked back at the window. His eyes slowly closed. His breathing slowed. "Damn it, Austin, fight!" A gentle squeeze from Austin's hand is all the reaction William got. The squeeze quickly lost its strength until Austin's hand went limp. "It's not supposed to be like this. You can't leave us. We need you. I need you." His breathing slowed, stopped. William did not let go of his hand. He sat there, perfectly still, as the snow continued to fall. In the other bed, Teresa, still fighting, coughed. Mary Margaret lay in silence. William had become far too comfortable with burying his kids. Within days, their situation was sorted. Someone had stripped Austin's bed. His things were gone. The space where he had slept was an open wound in the room. Teresa lay in her bed, worse now. Mary had not left her side. Her eyes were red-rimmed and sunken. She held Teresa's hand and sang to her, a lullaby in Irish, the words worn smooth by centuries of mothers singing them to children who might not survive the night. "Hush, old child, and do not cry. God's own angels are hovering nigh." William stood in the doorway. He had come from the cemetery. Snow covered his coat. Dirt was under his fingernails from where he had helped dig his son's grave because the ground was frozen and the gravediggers wanted extra money he didn't have. He watched Mary singing. He watched Teresa's small chest rise and fall. Outside, somewhere on Prince Street, carolers sang. The sound drifted in through the thin walls. Silent Night in English, then in Italian for the next block. Christmas Eve in Boston. Teresa's breathing changed. Mary stopped singing. She looked at William. He walked across the room and knelt beside the bed. Teresa opened her eyes. She looked at her father, then her mother. She was 3 years old. She did not have words for what was happening. Her face told more than any words could. Mary pulled her daughter close. William wrapped his arms around both of them. The snow fell. The carolers continued, their voices muffled and distant. "Silent night, holy night, all is calm." The distance between the joy in the carols and the pain in the room was too much to bear. Austin Boog died December 18th, 1874. Teresa Boog died December 24th, 1874. Mary Margaret had survived. The apartment was dark. Mary was asleep. The depleted, involuntary sleep of a body that had nothing left. William sat at the table. He took out the paper, unfolded it. The crease was deep and soft now. The paper had been folded and unfolded too many times. The left half, under Mary, George, X. Joseph, X. Austin, Mary, Letitia, Teresa, William, X. He picked up the pen. 2 X's to write tonight. He had been putting this off for 6 days. Since Austin. Since the frozen ground. Since Christmas Eve. He wrote the X after Austin, his only living son. The boy who had put his arm around Teresa on the stairs. The boy who had asked if they were going to move again. The only one who could carry on his name. The X was slow. His hand was slow. He had to press to finish the second stroke. Then Teresa. The pen hovered over her name. She was 3 years old. She did not have words for what was happening. He wrote the X. George X. Joseph X. Austin X. Mary. Letitia. Teresa X. William X. 5 X's. The right half of the paper was still blank. He wondered if death would follow him on that side too. He folded the paper, put it in his breast pocket, and sat in the dark. This has been the reading of Chasing the Sun, written by Ryan Boog, read by James A. Greig. Thank you for listening.